Hello! A few weeks ago, I responded to a reaction video made by the YouTuber J Longbone regarding the impending She-Hulk TV series. As stated previously, I was tempted to make a video on the reactions people were having to She-Hulk, and J Longbone just so happened to be the one video that caught my attention. However, after making the video, one viewer made a comment or four questioning what I had said. I normally like to try to reply to comments, so I opened a notepad and began to make one. However, I realised that they may have been onto something. I wanted to talk about general opinions regarding CGI. It gets a lot of negative opinions thrown at it, even for just existing in media. I wanted to use J Longbone's trailer reaction as a jumping off point to discuss these negative opinions. But in my video I got carried away debunking her point and got very off topic. So I wanted to correct myself and make a new video concentrating on She-Hulk's CGI, or at least what we see of it in the trailer, and not get distracted by talk of camera angles, mumbled speech, or clothing choices. So let's get comfortable and talk about She-Hulk's trailer, J Longbone's response, and what people seem to think about CGI. The first thing I want to bring up is the, disingenuous evidencing. Yes, I know that sounds harsh, but I can't really think of a better term for it. J Longbone points to these specific screenshots in the She-Hulk trailer to show the CGI is bad. If you don't think about it, this is great evidence that bolsters her point. It's CGI that's in the trailer and it looks bad, therefore CGI is bad. But it doesn't take much to dismiss the evidence. As a comparison, here's a picture of Black Widow from the film Black Widow. She is an actual, real, physical person who looks pretty good if you ask me. I wouldn't mind waking up next to that. And this is one shot in the film. There are plenty of others to choose from. However, if we use this screenshot, then suddenly she looks bloody awful. But wait, you might say. This is a disingenuous screenshot you're using. The actress and possibly even the camera are moving, adding motion blur. The screenshot looks zoomed in, pixelating the image, and the actress is screwing her face up, so she's not looking her best. All of these are valid points against the use of this specific screenshot to evidence Black Widow the character looking bad. You would instead use a screenshot that presents a clear, undistorted image of the character to make a fully informed decision about their looks. Deliberately using a distorted image of a character not at their best is bad faith. So what about the She-Hulk trailer? Every screenshot used as evidence of bad CGI is zoomed in maybe by a factor of 2 and is taken during movement, pixelation, and motion blur. In some of the screenshots, the actress is pulling a face, so she's not looking her best before distortions are added. Not helping all this is the filter Longbone lays over the top, a fuzzy static imitating a paused VHS tape. This is, I hope, purely aesthetical and not a subtle attempt to make the screenshots look worse than they are. The strategy of using distorted screenshots to make a point only works if people don't look at them for any given time. As soon as they do, one or two things happen. 1. The viewer will notice the distortions and, probably correctly, assume whoever made the video and the argument is being disingenuous, and dismiss the argument, the video, and the creator. 2. The viewer will notice the distortions and try to ignore them, their brains auto-correcting the blurs and pixelations in an attempt to see the untainted image. Unfortunately for the argument, the blurs and distortions hide imperfections, making the perceived image look better. This leads me to another point. How good something looks is often described as being in the eye of the beholder. In other words, it's subjective. Some people like thick asses, others like heavy boobs, others like DSLs. And one person's "ew, CGI, horrible" is another person's "that looks alright, that." To make an objective argument, you'd need to make a comparison. J Longbone does include some comparisons in her video. Longbone mentions that the CGI looks better when not distorted to bloody hell by motion blur, although she neglects to mention the zooming in and filters. She mentions this, but neglects to show anything in context. But then, later on, she brings up the Disney Plus trailer. Apparently the She-Hulk trailer looked better on Disney's streaming service than on YouTube. Longbone takes the example pictures used in the referenced Twitter post and puts them in a meme. Can anyone spot the problem here? J Longbone uses one set of images to point out how bad the CGI is. She then uses a completely different image to point out how little difference there is between the trailers. Yes, the image was provided by someone else, at which point maybe she shouldn't have been using it. If she wanted to make a solid point, she'd reuse the same screenshots, but from the other trailer, thereby making a valid and useful comparison. Or she could have used the same screenshots for comparing the trailers and judging the quality of the CGI, but that wouldn't be fair to her argument. The problem is, these are the images that show how much better the CGI actually looks. By using them to make fun of someone else's argument, she is inadvertently pointing out how bad her own argument is. Essentially, Longbone said, "Hey, look at these images, doesn't the CGI look bad? Also, look at these other images regarding another point. Ignore the fact that CGI looks way better in them." Another comparison Longbone makes is to the Hulk, who also appears in the trailer and the upcoming She-Hulk series. She says he looks much better than She-Hulk despite being in the same show. She also mentions Thanos as an example of better CGI. Once again, if you don't know any better, this sounds like a good argument. If you don't know any better. Both these characters are from big budget films, which opens up a much larger discussion about time and money. Adjusted for inflation, both films cost far more than the She-Hulk series, i.e. the She-Hulk series will cost $225 million, which is a lot, but Infinity War cost, with inflation, $360 million. The Hulk can look better in She-Hulk's TV series because they can reuse his pre-existing film model, and both Thanos and Hulk are on screen a lot less than She-Hulk probably will be. Thanos can look better than She-Hulk because he gets more time spent on fewer frames. Speaking of time, it has been reported / rumoured that there was, and maybe still is, a backlog of CGI work in the film and TV industry, which has affected a lot of recent productions, including She-Hulk. Not only does She-Hulk potentially have more time on screen than her counterparts, but counterintuitively, she's going to have less time and money spent on her. Some, including myself, would argue comparing She-Hulk to the Hulk and Thanos is unfair considering the differences in budget, screen time, and production issues. Other, less considerate people wouldn't. Time, money, and productions aren't things that some people think about. But there are things that they should, and don't. One of these things is aesthetic choices. Thanos and the Hulk are big burly bros with all sorts of rugged details to them. She-Hulk is meant to look more physically attractive, which, with beauty standards, means smooth and unblemished features. The result of this is obvious. She's going to look less detailed. Despite this, it's clear the artists tried to add small details to She-Hulk, but these details are clear in the good images and lost in the blurry ones. Then there's the very, very short-sighted comments about She-Hulk's face. I already mentioned how images of She-Hulk's face, screwed up in effort or awkwardly smiling, are presented as, "Look how horrible the CGI is." This is already bad faith, but then you remember, this is the actress's face. Just like with Mark Ruffalo and the Hulk, the actress for Jennifer Walters is having her features movement captured onto She-Hulk. With that in mind, comments about She-Hulk's looks go from complaining about CGI to making derogatory comments on an actress's attractiveness, and that's a whole other kettle of fish no one should be messing with. This would be like saying Black Widow's outfit didn't look very good in a film, only to say that she has a big nose and a fat ass. I don't think those are valid criticisms somehow. Despite everything I've said here, from selective evidencing to objective comparisons to subjective interpretations, there's still going to be those who will dismiss She-Hulk out of hand for no other reason than because she's CGI. I've started to call these people Plinkett Plonkers. Plinkett is a character on the YouTube channel Red Letter Media, or RLM, who once upon a time reviewed the Star Wars prequel films. A lot of his criticisms dismissed the CGI out of hand because it was CGI. They had and have this weird belief that CGI is a magic wand that can make anything with a few key presses. You can still hear this opinion being repeated over and over again in RLM's more recent reviews. Apparently, practical effects are the only effects that have worth. This is of course an incredibly base and idiotic attitude to have. It would be like dismissing a piece of art because it isn't oil on canvas. Unfortunately, not only has this attitude survived the years, but it has been parroted by many online critics. The She-Hulk trailer has brought out these critics in droves. I would hope that if you've reached this part of the video, you will agree that the CGI of She-Hulk doesn't look that bad. And yet, many critics jumped on the bad CGI bandwagon to the credit. This is significant to point out and rebuke, because there is something far more important to focus on. Hello again. So just as this video was being rendered, Marvel decided to release a load of trailers, including a second one for She-Hulk, showing off a load more scenes of the Green Goddess. No, not that one, this one. Given how there's now a lot more material out there for people to look at, I waited patiently to see what was said about the CGI. As far as I can tell, naff all. I heard one comment from one YouTuber who said they didn't care about it, and what a marvellously useful statement that was, that I'm going to have a lot to say about in an upcoming video. So yeah, seems people don't have a lot to say about She-Hulk CGI anymore. It feels like the last time it was more to do with trend chasing than it did actual meaningful commentary. Always keep an ear out, you never know when someone will lose their moral standing. CGI aside, the trailer also showed us other things which the rest of this video might have something to say about. And now, back to me. CGI, claymation, suit acting, any kind of special effect in a film or TV series will age. Acting, characters, and stories on the other hand have a far longer shelf life. I can go back and watch Gojira 1954 and King Kong 1933 and not be put off by the effects, because the storytelling, character work, and themes shine through. She-Hulk's CGI, in my subjective opinion, looks alright. To you, dear viewer, it might not. Good or bad, that's not what's going to sink this particular ship. The story of the She-Hulk series is what we're going to tune in for and what we're going to pick apart. If it's bad, no amount of CGI will save it. However, if critics focus heavily on just the look of the show, then even if the story is good, who's to say it will be next time if all efforts are focused on the CGI to please unpleasable critics? I, for one, will withhold judgment. Thank you for watching this video. I took a bit more time explaining myself here, so hopefully I got my point across. I honestly didn't see the horrendous, terrible things that other people saw when watching the She-Hulk trailer. Maybe I'm just a bit more accepting of CGI than other people? At any rate, I hope this video was enjoyable and informative. If so, feel free to do all the YouTube things. Maybe even go visit my Etsy store, link in the description. I also have a Patreon if you fancy throwing me a quid to keep me afloat. Link also in the description. Once again, thank you for watching.